Hi, I'm the Space Quest historian. Here's a sentence I never thought I'd say, but we've solved the Blue Frogs mystery, everyone! Okay, no thunderous gasps from the crowd? Right, well, I may have to provide some context then. Okay, back in the day, circa mid-90s, we were just as hopped up on finding secrets in our favorite games as we are today. We didn't call it data mining, and we certainly didn't have the fancy tools we do now, where we can just open up our favorite game in a utility like SCI Companion and look through the whole thing. But there were other things we could do. Quite early on, we figured out that you could load up the resource file containing all the digital sound effects and voices in Space Quest 4 into just any old audio utility and just sit there and listen to the whole thing. There aren't that many games you can do this with, because usually most games compress their audio files with some sort of proprietary audio format, which makes it unlistenable, but Space Quest 4's audio resource file is just raw PCM audio, which means if you know what the sample rate and bit rate is, you can import it into any program that can read raw audio. Now you may ask, why would we do this? Well, there are many reasons. One, we were very bored when we were teenagers. Probably not as bored as the dude who actually sat down and transcribed the whole thing, because holy shit, but we were really very bored. Second, there's actually a ton of fun stuff hiding out in Space Quest 4's audio resources that aren't in the game itself. Most famously, I think, are these products in the electronics store. It's Radio Shock in the disc version, but hurts so good in the CD version. In the original game, they're read out by this robotic voice by Barry T. Smith.
We're here to interview Jim Thomas, president of Sierra Online. Let's go.
Hey, you can't go in there.
I have a gun.
Dodecaphonic around sound processor. Ever notice how flat and unexciting normal stereophonic, quintrophonic, and octophonic recordings
But
are?
in the resource audio file, there are also versions read out by Roger's voice actor.
Your music will seem to come from 12 directions: in front of you, behind you, either side of you, 4 midpoints above you, below you, from inside of you, and from the upstairs neighbors. 877 buckazoids. Discontinued? I wanted that.
But there was one audio clip in the resource file that completely baffled everyone, and it was this one.
Blue frogs on my shoulder makes me happy.
Now, we searched every location in the game. We've clicked on everything. We looked in every nook and cranny trying to figure out what could possibly trigger this line to play, and we never found it. All we had to go on was this nagging notion that it had to belong somewhere in the time pod, because it was sort of sandwiched in amongst a bunch of other time pod related messages. But I'm telling you, we milked that time pod dry, and there is nowhere on that screen where you can trigger a line where Gary Owens sings about blue frogs. Now, a prevailing theory at the time was that this might be some debug function that we didn't know how to trigger, or that might have been disabled prior to the game shipping. And the reason for that is because the Blue Frogs line kind of reminded people of Quest for Glory 2. In Quest for Glory 2, you enable debug by typing in "suck blue frog." So people were kind of thinking, okay, this is a reference to Quest for Glory 2 for some strange reason, but again, we never found it. Now, there is a debug menu in the time pod. If you click on Roger's shoulder with the look icon, it brings up this lovely cheat menu where you can warp to any time period you want without having to mess around with all those fiddly time codes. Trouble is, this only works in the Space Quest 4 beta because, wouldn't you know it, Sierra disabled it for the release version, so you can't trigger this in your copy from Steam or GOG. But for years and years, there's been this patch you can download off of spacequest.net, which re-enables the time pod debug, because they didn't actually take out the debug menu completely from the release version, they just sort of disabled it in the code. So it was just a matter for someone to figure out how to re-enable it, and, off we scoot. But what about those blue frogs? Well, get ready for a scoop, kids. It turns out it does actually belong with the debug menu in the time pod. We know this because, as you can see here, line 37 of the script is supposed to play when you click on the debug hotspot on Roger's shoulder, and line 37 is the blue frogs line. We can see this in the message pane in SCI Companion, but due to some bizarre programming oversight, the triggering of this line actually gets superseded by this mess of code further down in the script. And this is the bit of the script that actually displays the debug menu. So what this all means is, some dingbat actually went to the trouble of putting in a line about blue frogs, and Gary Owens actually sat down and recorded this in the vocal booth, but somehow this programmer managed to never have the line actually trigger in the game itself at all. But luckily, Sam Lawson on the SQH Discord worked out how to get this debug menu to work and have it play the elusive blue frogs line. It is a little complicated if you've never worked with SCI Companion before, but Sam has kindly recorded a video tutorial on how to decompile the game code, put in the necessary fix, and then recompile it. Now, I haven't put that in this video. I've put that in a separate video because, it's a little, but there's a link in the description if you want to go and have a mess with this yourself. Just be absolutely sure to back up your copy of Space Quest 4 before you go poking around inside the game code. We are not responsible for you breaking the shit out of your Space Quest 4, which can very, very easily happen because SCI Companion is not known for playing nice. But with all that said, here is Space Quest 4's Blue Frogs debug cheat mode with the actual blue frog line in it. Ta-da!
Blue frogs on my shoulder makes me happy. The powerful quad quark drives Rev to life.
Now, would you believe we waited almost 30 years to see this? This is a 30-odd year mystery that has plagued, and I mean plagued, Space Quest fans since we sat there in the mid-90s and listened to the whole damn resource audio file. We went, Blue Frogs on his what now and why, and it's been the source of, I can't tell you how hopped up we were back in the days of the Space Quest community in the mid to late 90s. There were threads after threads about these fucking frogs and why were they blue and what were they doing on his shoulder and why is he singing? I cannot tell you what a relief it is to Fob. Who are you?
I'm you from the future. I've come to warn you, in 2 days when you're editing this, you'll realize you forgot something very important.
Holy shit, what?
There's another message in the messages pane that's part of the warp debug thingamajig, but it's never triggered in the game. It's right here, line 38.
Where to?
It's the headline of the debug window itself, but here's the fucked up part. Unlike the Blue Frogs line, this one is not even referenced in the code at all, which means they put it in the script, had Gary Owens record the line, and then never bothered to put it in the game itself.
Okay, that's weird. Is there a way to put it back in the game?
Maybe. You're not clever enough to figure out a way, though. You will spend a couple of hours trying, but you will fail. The closest you'll get is to have played before the dialogue box appears and after you've selected a new time period.
Well, that sucks. Hey, let me ask you, how far into the future did you come from?
3 days.
3 days. And you already grew a beard. And why do you sound like that?
There's no time to explain. I'm off to shove myself out of the airlock. Life is just too unbearable.
Wait, what? Oh, well, better make the most of my time then. Hey, speaking of the time pod, just as a little bonus, it turns out there's actually a couple of hidden messages for the smell and taste icons in there. Again, Gary Owens actually recorded these, and they are in the game, but the smell and taste icons are normally disabled in the time pod. But we can re-enable those in SCI Companion and enjoy these two unheard gems. They both belong to the switch that opens the time pod. Here's the smell message.
Placing your proboscis closer to the switch would result in severe quark burns from the unshielded cables. but it might also rid you of those unsightly nose hairs.
And here's the taste message.
Licking switches is never a good idea unless you're into that kind of buzz that causes you to lose all control of your muscle system. This could result in the loss of control of all bodily functions.
Now, it's kind of an open secret that most of the smell and taste messages in Space Quest 4 were written by Josh Mandel, but I asked him if he recognized any of these, and it turns out that they are not his messages, which means they were probably most likely put in by Scott Murphy. Incidentally, they are also the only messages for smell and taste, so maybe they were just put in on a whim and then they just decided to turn off the smell and taste icons in the time pod. Anyway, that's it for all the secret messages in the time pod.
Hey, you missed one.
What? Are you still here?
Yes, there's another smell message if you sniff the general interior of the time pod.
Is there? Hang on, let me check.
Not only does the time pod look like a used tennis shoe, from the inside it smells like one too.
Oh, hey, you were right. Hey, didn't you say you were shoving yourself out of the airlock?
Yes, I am. Depressurizing now. Bye-bye, fucko. No one loves you.
Oh, well, let's just hope that time paradox doesn't come back to bite me in the ass. Anyway, that really is all the secret messages in the time pot, so thank you so much for watching, but we're not done with Space Quest 4 yet. Next time, we'll be listening in on some secret conversations between the secret policemen. Until then, thank you for watching, and I'll see you around the Chrono Stream. Bye!